Shalom Aleichem, Mishpachim. I am coming to you. We are in the 7th chapter of Chovos HaLevavos, Duties of the Heart, Rabbi Bachya ibn Paquda. All right, 7th chapter. Why don't we just begin? Let us do this. All right, we will begin. This is the chapter called Unity of God. Well, this is the gate, Unity of God. And let us begin chapter 7. Arguments for the proposition that God is one. Since it has been demonstrated by way of logical argument that the world has a creator, it is now our duty to inquire as to whether he is one or more than one. It is necessary to prove the true nature of his oneness from 7 different perspectives. The first argument is drawn from examining the causes of existing things. For when we consider these causes, we find that they are fewer than their effects. The causes of these causes are still fewer. The further back we go in tracing the causes of causes, the fewer causes we find. The higher we ascend the hierarchy of causes, the lower their number becomes, until finally, when we reach the top, there is only one cause, the cause of all causes. Let us now elaborate. Individual things are innumerable, but when we consider the species which comprise them, we find their number to be fewer than the individual things included in them. For each of the species consists of many individuals, and the species are limited in number. When we group the different species into classes, the number of classes will be less than the number of species contained in them, as there are many species in each class. We then classify the classes. The higher we ascend the hierarchy of classes, the lower their number becomes, until finally they are reduced to the fundamental categories. The philosopher has pronounced the fundamental categories to be 10 in number, namely essence, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, situation, possession, activity, and passivity. When we trace the causes of all the individual things included in the species of these 10 categories, we find that they are 5, motion, and the 4 elements, namely fire, air, water, and earth. When we trace the causes of these 4 elements, we find that they are 2, matter and form. And what causes them? The number of their causes will no doubt be even smaller. Their cause is the will of the Creator. May He be exalted. The only number less than 2 is 1, and so the Creator must, of necessity, be one. The same was said by David. Kingship is yours, God. God, you are most exalted, the first of them all. He was saying that God is exalted above all who are exalted, highest of the high, the beginning of all beginnings, the cause of all causes and effects. The second argument is drawn from the signs of wisdom, which are manifest throughout this world, in its upper and lower regions, in its minerals, vegetation, and animals. When we study the world, it shows us that it is entirely the plan of one designer, the work of a single creator. For we find that with all the differences in its substances and elements, it shows uniformity in its effects and its parts, the signs of the Creator's wisdom, manifest in the smallest as in the largest creatures, testify that they all have one wise Creator. If the world really had more than one creator, diverse forms of wisdom would be manifest in its different parts and in its species and individuals. Furthermore, we find that the world's stability and perfect balance rest on the interdependence of its parts. No part is complete unless complemented by another, just as links in chain armor, the parts of a bed, the organs of the human body, and the components of other composite things complement each other and need each other to function properly. One can see plainly that the moon and stars need the light of the sun. The earth needs the sky and water, Animals are dependent on one another, and some species, birds, fish, and beasts of prey, for instance, feed on others. Man needs the world, and the world, for its perfection, needs man. Countries and towns, the sciences, and the arts are interdependent. Wisdom is manifest in the smallest as in the largest creatures. The force of wisdom displays in the creation of the elephant, in its great body size, is not more marvelous than the force of wisdom displayed in the creation of the ant, in its tininess. On the contrary, the smaller the creature, the more evident in it is the force of wisdom and power, the more marvelous and manifest the Creator's achievement. What this shows is that all things are the conception of one designer, one creator. For all things reflect uniformity and are coordinated to achieve a perfect, stable, and comprehensive world order. In the world had more than one creator. If the world had more than one creator, diverse forms of wisdom would be manifest in its different parts, which would not then be interdependent, since the world, in spite of all the differences in its substances and elements, shows uniformity in its products and combinations. One may conclude that its creator, composer, governor, and designer is one. The philosopher has said, "There is nothing in what God has created that is more wonderful than what he has created," meaning that wisdom is manifest uniformly and equally in the smallest as in the largest parts of creation. This idea was also expressed by David when he spoke of the world's nature or natural order. And facility for supporting life. What does that say? And facility for supporting life. How manifold are your works, God! With wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creations. Tehillim, chapter 104, verse 24. How great are your works, God! How exceedingly deep your designs. Tehillim, chapter 92, verse 6. The third argument is based on the fact that the entire world was brought into existence from non-existence. Having demonstrated that the world was brought into existence from non-existence, we were forced to conclude that someone created it, as it is impossible for something to have come into existence on its own. When we find that a thing exists, and it is clear to us that it came into existence after having been previously non-existent, we know, by testimony of a sound mind, that something other than itself created it, brought it into existence, and formed it. Since it has been established that the world has a creator, who created it and brought it into existence, there is no need to consider the possibility that there is more or less than one creator, for there could not be a world without even one creator. If it were possible to conceive of a world with a creator who is less than one, we would so conceive him. But since we cannot conceive of something less than one which can make something else, we may conclude that he is one. For in the case of things that are verifiable by way of adducing proofs, when their existence is proved conclusively, we need not assume that to be more than it's necessary to account. We need not assume them to be more than is necessary to account for the phenomenon that constitutes their proof. An analogy of the above would be as follows. If we should see a manuscript that is uniform in composition and is written in one handwriting, it would immediately occur to us that one individual wrote and composed it. For it is inconceivable that it was written by less than one person. If that were possible, however, we would assume that to be the case, although it is theoretically possible that more than one person were involved in writing it. It would be unwarranted to make such an assumption unless there was corroborating evidence to that effect, such as a change in the handwriting in part of the manuscript, or some similar type of indication. This being so, there is no need for us, in our case, to meet the author face to face, if that way of coming to know him is impossible. Rather, it is enough to see the manuscript, the inferences drawn about the author from his work, from his handwriting style, serve us instead of our actually meeting him. We may conclude with certainty, based on the consistent style of uniformity of the manuscript, that there existed one writer who schooled and skilled in the craft, wrote it, and that no one else collaborated with him in writing it. A work written by two different authors would be marked by diversity, lack of uniformity, inconsistency of style, and would fluctuate in quality and character. The same can be said of the Creator. May He be exalted, because the signs of wisdom manifest in His creations are uniform in character. It is necessary for us to believe that one Creator created them, for the existence of all created things is impossible without Him, and He is not something that can be seen, like substances or accidents. Since He cannot be seen, it is impossible to learn of His existence and attain knowledge of Him except by way of logical argument, and through observations of His creations, which give evidence of Him. In this way will our faith be strong that He exists, and that He is one, that He is eternal, who was and will be, the first and the last, that He is mighty, wise, living, since He is not visible. Since He is not visible, the inferences we draw about Him serve us instead of our actually seeing Him. For this reason, it is necessary for us to conceive of one Creator who created all, for without Him, the existence of everything that has come into existence would be impossible, but existence would be possible without there being more than one Creator. There is no need for more than one Creator. Therefore, if anyone maintains that the Creator is more than one, his words do not stand, unless he supports them with a proof other than the one which we have cited. It is impossible, however, to support such a claim, for rational arguments do not contradict each other. Rather, they all testify to God's oneness and rule out the attribution to Him of plurality. Association or similarity, as God Himself declares, "Is there a God beside me? There is no rock that I do not know." Yeshayahu, chapter 44, verse 8. "I am the first, and I am the last. It was yet my hand that founded the earth, my right hand that spread out the heavens. I call to them, and they endure in harmony. There is no God beside me, righteous and redeeming." Argument 4. To anyone who thinks that the Creator is more than one, we say that the essence of all these supposed creation must be either one or not one. If he says that the essence is one, then it is one thing, and the Creator is not more than one. If he says that each of them has an essence which is not that of any other, it follows necessarily that there is a separation between them, due to their difference and otherness. Now, whatever is separate is limited, and whatever is limited is finite, and whatever is finite is composite, and whatever is composite has been brought into existence, and whatever has been brought into existence has a Creator. It follows then that he who thinks that the Creator is more than one must also assume that He is created. We have already demonstrated, however, that the Creator of the world is eternal, the cause of all causes and the beginning of all beginnings, who is of necessity one. As Scripture states, "You are the one who is God, you alone." Nehemiah, chapter 9, verse 6. The fifth argument is drawn from the meaning of the concepts of plurality and oneness. Euclid, in his book, defines oneness as follows. Oneness is that notion in virtue of which a thing is said to be one. This means that oneness is prior by nature to the thing which is one, prior by nature to the thing which is one, just as we say that heat precedes anything that is hot. If there were no oneness, nothing could be said to be one. The idea we should form in our minds of oneness is of absolute uniqueness and solitariness. That which has no association or comparison whatsoever, is totally devoid of plurality in number, and has been neither combined with anything nor separated from anything. The idea of plurality is the sum of many ones. Plurality cannot then precede oneness, of which it is an aggregate. When we discover with our minds or with our senses of plurality, we can be sure that oneness preceded it, just as the number one precedes all other numbers. It follows then that he who thinks the Creator is more than one must, of necessity, admit that was one who preceded them all, as the number one precedes the other numbers, And as oneness precedes plurality, the Creator then is necessarily one. He is eternal, there being no one eternal outside of him. As it is said, before me no God was formed, nor will there be after me. Yeshayahu, chapter 43, verse 10. The sixth argument is drawn from a consideration of the accidental properties that are attached to everything that is plural. Plurality is an accidental property superadded to the substance of a thing, namely, quantity. God created substance and accident. Hence, not one of their attributes may be ascribed to the essence of his glory, as it has been demonstrated from reason and from Scripture, that the Creator is exalted above any resemblance or comparison to one of his created things, and as the plurality superadded to the substance of a thing is an accidental property, it follows that no attribute of plurality may rightly be ascribed to the essence of the glory of the Creator. And if he cannot be described as plural, then he is necessarily one. For being plurality and oneness, there is no middle term. Hence, the Creator is not more than one. Rather, he is of necessity one. As Hannah said, there is no one holy like God. There is no one except you. Shmuel 1, chapter 2, verse 2. The seventh argument, if the Creator were more than one, then each of them either could have created the world by himself or could not have created it except with the help of the other. If we assume that any one of them could have created it by himself, then any other creator is superfluous, for the one can do it without the help of the other. If we assume that creation could not have been completed unless the creators collaborated, it follows that not one of them is completely sovereign or all-powerful, as each one is incapable and limited. Each one is incapable and limited. Each one is weak. Now, what is weak is limited in its power and essence. What is limited is finite. What is finite is composite, and what is composite is created, and what is created has a creator. Consequently, what is weak could not possibly be eternal, for the eternal one falls short at nothing, and needs no help. Consequently, the Creator is not more than one. If it were possible for the Creator to be more than one, there might have been disagreement between the creation in regard to the creating. I'm going to read that again. If it were possible for the Creator to be more than one, there might have been disagreement between the creators in regard to the creating, and the creation might not have been accomplished by them. Since we find that the whole world follows one order, and uniform motion is found in all its parts, never changing throughout the generations, we can be certain that its Creator and Governor is one. No one beside him can alter his work or change his rule, as it says, "Who, as I, can call out the generations from the start? Let him foretell it and arrange it for me." Yeshayahu, chapter 44, verse 7. And as David said, "Forever, God, your word stands firm in the heavens. Your faithfulness is for all generations. You have established the earth, and it endures." Tehillim, chapter 119, verses 89 and 90. What can we see from the Creator's perfect government of creation? Is that government can be perfect, steady, and consistent only when policy and control are concentrated in one individual, like a king in his country, and like the soul in the body. Aristotle has stated in his book, in reference to unity, "It is not good when there are many heads, but only when there is one head." Shlomo has said, "When a land rebels, its ruler are many." Proverbs, Mishlei, chapter 28, verse 2. What we have mentioned on this subject is sufficient for anyone endowed with understanding. It is also sufficient to refute the doctrine of the dualists, the Christian Trinitarians, and the like, for by establishing the oneness of the Creator of the world, we refute the contention of anyone who claims that he is more than one. Know this well. And that is chapter 7 of Chovos Halevavos, Duties of the Heart, Rabbi Bachya ibn Paquda. All right, have a wonderful day.